Hello, everybody. As you're making your way in, welcome to our partner showcase, Mantis and Chameleon update, version 2.1. As you're making your way in, we would love if you guys could take part in our poll and tell us a little bit about you. You should see that pop up on your screen right about now, and we will share the results with you guys in just a little bit. So while you guys are taking this poll, I would love to talk about some ground rules and housekeeping for this webinar today. Please type your questions in the chat. We would love for you guys to take part as much as possible and be active. There will be no ACV REP credits for this partner showcase, and there will be closed captioning available. Alrighty, I see the majority of you guys are in the midst of taking the poll, so I won't end it just now, but I will go ahead and introduce our host for today. Our first host will be Willow Free, and she is the Tactile Technology Product Manager here at APH. And we also have Sarah Welch, who is the Tactile Technology Product Specialist at APH, and they will be telling you a little bit about this product. Before we get started, I will share some of these results with you from the poll. And it looks like the majority of you guys are joining us from the Northwest. Welcome. But we do also have some representation from the Southeast and Southwest and Midwest. So welcome. And it looks like most of you guys are teachers of the visually impaired, while we also have some assistive technology specialists and some Braille transcribers and a couple of other people who have some different occupations. And it looks like a lot of you guys either always update your Chameleon or occasionally do it. So we're excited to tell you a little bit more about this new update that we have going on here. So I'd love for Willow and Sarah to take it away.
Great. Thank you, Amanda. Thanks everybody for being here. My name's Willow, and our agenda today is we're going to be talking about the Mantis and the Chameleon, obviously, and our V2.1 update. We did have one question already coming in the chat of, can you get a copy of the PowerPoint for reference? I'm not sure how we can make that work, but what I can do is I can give you my email address and you can email me and I can send you the PowerPoint. And actually, that's my old email address. That's my new email address, but they both go to the same inbox. So it's wfree@aph.org. So yeah, go ahead and email me any questions or to ask for the PowerPoint and I can send it to you. But our agenda is we're going to do an overview of the displays just to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. Then we're going to talk about updating your displays and how that process works and what's involved, because we want to make sure folks update. We put a lot of effort into these updates, and we just want to make sure that folks take advantage of them and are able to give us feedback on them. If you're still on an old release, you won't necessarily be able to give quality feedback because you're going to see things that maybe we've already fixed. Then we're going to get into the features that are in the latest update that we want to make sure you know about. So sticky keys on the Mantis, NLS Braille, the new sign-in option you have under your online services. And then we'll close by talking about the new voices that have been added for the Chameleon. And if you've got any questions, I like to keep the chat open during the webinar. So if you've got any questions, go ahead and just throw them in the chat. And we'll try to address your questions as we go. I like to do it that way just because it keeps things lively and it keeps folks from being confused. And I feel like it'll help folks stay active and participate in the webinar. So with that, we will get going with our overview. So the first thing up is a physical description of the displays. So I've got a picture up of the Chameleon on the left and the Mantis on the right. The Chameleon it's a smaller display. It's got a Perkins style keyboard. So your traditional like Braille keyboard with the 6 keys for the Braille cell, and then the dots 7 and 8 on the outside. Then you've got your 20 cells of Braille. Those are traditional piezo electric Braille cells with router keys. Then below that, you've got your 2 space bars. They both function as 1 space bar, but they've been put as 2 just to help with the ergonomics and to keep costs down by using that same button from the Braille keys. And then on the front edge, you've got your home button in the middle. That's the little round button. I like to think of it as the escape hatch. If you ever get deep in the Chameleon's interface and you're not sure where you are or how to get out, you can always press that home button and it will take you to the editor. It's a great way if you're working with a student and you're not quite sure where the student is and you want to give them instructions on how to get somewhere. You can tell them to press that home button first, and then you know they're in the edit. They're at the top of the menu and it's gonna say editor. So you can always tell them press the home button, and then you know the instructions you give them will be accurate. Press down 3 times, whatever it is. On the outside of the home button are the thumb keys on the left and right. Those will navigate by either going to the next display portion or jumping straight to the next line. So on something like the Chameleon, which is only 20 cells, if you have a 40 cell file, you can actually skip to the next line and not read the second set of 20 cells using the outer thumb keys. And then the Mantis is larger because it has a QWERTY keyboard. So it's got a traditional QWERTY keyboard. It's a laptop style keyboard, so there's no numpad. You don't have the 6-pack of insert, delete, home, end, and so on. It does have function keys though. And again, it has the 40 cells, and then the layout is basically the same from there. It has a USB-A and an SD card slot for storage, but it already has 16 gigs of onboard storage, both devices. 16 gigs is really a lot of storage, especially for the kinds of files you're going to be storing on your Mantis and Chameleon. You can get a lot of books in 16 gigs. But if you want to add storage, you can do up to 64 gigs each on a thumb drive or SD card. And then it's got USB-C for charging and terminal connection, and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. And then the Chameleon does have something special. You can just barely see it in this picture, but there's a place for an audio jack, so you can plug in a pair of headphones and then volume up and down buttons. So that's just a brief description of both devices to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about. And then we'll get into the software. So there's a lot of apps. You've got the editor, which is for editing files. Everything you open in the editor is going to be converted to a TXT file. So whether you open a Braille file like a BRF or a BRL, or if you open a docx or whatever, it'll get changed into a TXT file when you edit it and then save it. The Braille editor is very similar to the editor, except the Braille editor doesn't convert your file. It keeps it as a Braille file, and that way you can edit it. So you can use it to edit other Braille files, or you can use it to make entirely new files. And that was a great feature that we added because we had a lot of folks in the Braille industry, so proofreaders, transcribers, that wanted to use their Mantis and or Chameleon to do their work. And so that's why we've got that Braille editor. That was a user requested feature. I noticed there's a question in the chat too, is can we use Bluetooth headphones? Can Bluetooth headphones be connected to the Chameleon? Not at the moment. It's something we're looking at, and you may see in a future update because we can see why that would be beneficial. And then Jim was asking, what is the Braille file type that is created or used? So if you're in the Braille editor, what it makes is a BRL file. So a BRL is a lot like a BRF, except it doesn't have a set page size. So you can make a line that's really, really long. We've got updates coming next year that will turn it into a proper BRF. So you'll have all the proper formatting. Next up is the terminal. We'll talk about the terminal a bit more in the next slide, but this is how you'll connect to an external device. So either Bluetooth or USB, this will connect you to your iPhone, your iPad, your Chromebook. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. The library is primarily for editing or for reading, excuse me. It is the opposite of editing. It is reading, but you can add bookmarks, you can check out your books, and we've got updates since it's come out that have basically removed some of the separation between the editor and the library. One of our goals is to kind of get it to where you don't need an editor or a library, and you could just basically have one app that does both the editing and the reading, and you just kind of enter a different mode. So we've already started removing some of those differences, and you'll see more of that happen over the next year. Then we got the file manager, nothing really fancy there. It's just a basic file manager. That way you don't have to use a computer to manage your files. And then the calculator, basic calculator, just a nice little convenience you might as well have. And then online libraries, that's going to be, so you're probably, if you're familiar with the Mantis and Chameleon, that's going to be your Bookshare, your NFB Newsline, and we'll be talking about it today, NLS Bard or NLS Braille, whichever way you prefer to think of it. And then we got a question in the chat. For the future BRF files for the Mantis, will they be able to be opened on PerkyDuck or other software? So you can open the BRL files in programs like PerkyDuck. BRL is a valid Braille file type. So you can open it in Notepad, you can open it in PerkyDuck, but yeah, BRF's definitely better because it's set up better for embossing and reading on other displays. So that's one reason why I want it for the Braille editor. Last thing here before we get into the update process is the terminal, which we talked about a little bit already. But you can switch between up to 5 different Bluetooth devices and USB. So you can be connected to up to 6 devices at once, which can be really great. You know, most people probably don't have 6 devices at home they need to connect to, but you know, maybe you've got 3 at school and then 3 at home that you have to switch between. On Windows, we've got JAWS and NVDA. Narrator's in development, and there's been some really exciting things happening there in beta. So I'm looking forward to what's coming there. iOS devices, so iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch. iOS is definitely where you get the best support. And it makes sense because that's what a lot of folks have as their personal device. And then Mac, the support's great there as well. Chromebook is via USB only, which I know is inconvenient to not be able to use Bluetooth. And then Android is in development by Google. Technically, with Android devices, the latest Android devices, you can also connect to those via USB, but I'll be the first one to say connecting to a phone or tablet using a USB cable is kind of weird. You can do it with the latest devices if you've got TalkBack and BrailleBack installed in the latest Braille TTY, but obviously Bluetooth would be better. And so we're hoping to get that in there too. And with that, I will turn it over to Sarah to talk about updating.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Welch again. It's been a while since I was introduced. Nice to meet you. So, update history. So, the Mantis and Chameleon have been released for over 3 years at this point and have received 7 updates since they were released at that point. And of course, our latest update is the 2.1, which is why we're all here today to talk about. So over time, these updates have added different features, and this includes the Braille Editor app, the global clipboard, PDF support, exam mode, as well as additional languages, and then of course, our new ones that we're talking about here today in 2.1.
And on languages, like on the Mantis, there's a ton of languages on the Mantis because the Mantis is sold internationally. So you've got Spanish, you've got French, you've got Russian, German, etc. On the Chameleon's only sold in the United States, so it's got English and Spanish. But I think it's good for our market to have both of those languages.
That's a good point. Thank you, Willow. So some things to keep in mind of how to update. So there's kind of two main ways to do this. So the first one is probably the easiest. You have your device connected to Wi-Fi, and then you go to settings and navigate to software update to check for an update automatically. The other way that we can do this is you can download the update from the shop page, and then you would put it onto a thumb drive or SD card, and you plug that into the unit while it is turned on. So those would be the two best ways to do the update.
One thing to be mindful of, we do everything we can to have a stable update process. But when the update comes out, it comes out all over the world. So and these have been very popular devices. And so a lot of people are getting the update at the same time. So now imagine you're on a not great school Wi-Fi connection, and you're competing with people all over the world to download the update from, basically the same servers. One of the things that can happen is if your Wi-Fi is very slow, it'll time out while you're downloading the update. So you'll be trying to download the update. Let's say your Wi-Fi is very, very slow, and these updates aren't that big, but let's say it's going to take you an hour to download that update. It will time out and kick you off and not download the whole update. So that's one of the reasons we have this shop page option, is so you can just download it once. We're not going to kick you off aph.org, no matter how long it takes you to download these updates. And then you can put it on a thumb drive or SD card. The other big benefit is, let's say you've got 10 units, you can just download it once, update all 10 units one at a time using that same update, or put it on different SD cards and update them that way, whatever works for you. But anyway, it could save you, especially if you're on like a metered connection and you only have so much data each month. Yeah, and so somebody said they're having a hard time updating the Chameleon, so is using the downloading from the shop page their best option? I would say so. And Sarah's going to get into some other considerations that may be affecting you too.
So updating considerations. First off, the unit must be powered on. Seems kind of obvious, but never hurts to clarify. Part of this, though, it has to be charged to over 50% and plugged into a power source. So the one issue you could be running into is maybe it doesn't have enough charge, and then it's not initiating the update. Also, when updating to 2.0 is required before you can get to our 2.1. So for instance, if you're on like a super old build, you'll first need to get to the 2.0 before you can move on to our latest update, which we know we've had a couple of people run into, but hopefully people are updating more frequently than that. And for reference, the 2.0 came out in fall of 2022. So it's been a year now.
Yeah, we've had 2 updates since 2.0. And to install either of those updates, including the latest one that we're talking about today, you have to first install 2.0. And we actually have 2.0 on the shop page. I think it's marked as Legacy Braille Display Update. And so it's available, and you can download it and install it the way we just discussed. And then you should be good to install 2.1 however you want. 2.0 was just such a big update that it kind of changed and made this requirement. And most people already updated, so they're fine. But there are people out there that need to take this extra step. All right. Thank you, Sarah. And now we'll talk about sticky keys for the Mantis. What are sticky keys? Is this when they've spilled Kool-Aid all over their Mantis?
Hopefully not.
I've been waiting. Here's the sad part. I've been waiting 3 days to make that joke. So I hope it landed. So the overview of sticky keys. This is a Mantis only feature. And the whole idea is to have a one-handed mode operation. Thank you for the haha in the chat. I will take it. But it's one-handed mode operation. With the Chameleon, we have a one-handed mode, and the Chameleon, you absolutely have to have a one-handed mode, because for Braille characters, it's a lot of keys. You'll at times be pressing 8 keys at the same time. For the Mantis, it wasn't as serious, but you absolutely can't not have a one-handed mode. And so that's the whole idea of these sticky keys. And it's modeled after the sticky keys on Windows, if you're familiar with that. So how to activate. So the first thing is the easiest way to activate it. One of the things with a one-handed mode is you want to make sure you can activate it using one hand. And so part of it is you can enable it or disable it by pressing the Shift key 5 times. So just press the Shift key 5 times, and then you'll get a prompt basically saying, do you want to turn on sticky keys? And you can just press Enter, and then you're in. And you can do the same thing to turn it off. And there's a lot of beeps that happen to tell you like it's turned on, to tell you you've pressed a key to lock it, to tell you you've pressed a key that's not recognized. So you are getting a lot of at least audio feedback during the process. You can also activate sticky keys by going to settings and then user settings, and then there's an option called sticky keys, and then you can just turn it on from there or off. So once you've turned it on, how does it work? So to lock the key, it concerns all of the keys that you would use for hotkeys. So Control, Alt, Function, Shift, or the Windows key. So you activate it, you then press one of those keys twice, and then that key will remain locked until you press it a third time. So let's say you want to do Control V, you would do Shift 5 times to turn it on, or let's say you've already turned it on, you then press Control twice. Control is set. You can just imagine that there's this invisible hand holding down the control button. Then you press V, and now you will paste. It'll do the action of Control V, and then you can press Control again to release Control. Now the question came in the chat, will this work with other applications through the terminal? It won't. And the same's true, like on the Mantis, we have a 6-key mode. That also doesn't work in the terminal. And part of it is, it's just basically when you're in terminal mode and you're connected to another device, the other device is running the show. We are at that point a terminal, and we're just doing what the other device tells us to do. We've got a few little tricks we do to get around that. Like we have an ability now to where you can access the clipboard while you're in terminal mode, but it's real limited what we can do in that mode. The good news is that there's a similar mode on both Windows and iOS, so you should be good. iOS has like a completely configurable hotkey system that I think is amazing and worth checking out. I can't get into too much detail or we'll run out of time, but you've got a lot of accessibility options already once you're in terminal mode. So it's not like you're going to go without. It just won't carry over. So, and then we've got our first poll question. Do we want to put that up?
Awesome. So we're about to launch the poll for you guys. The poll question is, how many times do you have to press the Shift key to turn on the sticky keys?
Your options are 100, 10, 5, and 3. And if you've got any questions, now's a good time to throw them in the chat.
All righty. We're going to be ending the poll in just a minute. So select your answers now. All right, it looks like the majority of you guys answered, and we are going to go ahead and share the results with you guys. So it looks like 68% said 5, and we have 32% of people who said 3.
The correct answer is 5. So most of you were right. But yeah, I see where that confusion came in, because it's 5 times of pressing the Shift key to activate sticky keys. and then it's pressing the key twice to activate that particular key, and then a third time to deactivate that particular key. So I see where the confusion came from on pressing it 3 times, and I'm glad we talked about it. But I'll turn it over to Sarah again to talk about NLS Braille.
So yes, NLS Braille. This is probably the feature that I'm the most excited about. So this feature, NLS Braille, is for both the Mantis and the Chameleon. And you notice how we specifically saying Braille in the name? This access is only for the Braille materials that are through this. So we do not have any of the access to the audio materials. So that is important to denote. So how do we get started with this? So you would go to Online Services, then navigate to NLS Bard. Here you will enter your credentials. And then once you're in, you can view and download books based on popularity, recent releases, subject, or word search. You can download books and magazines from your wish list and edit your wish list. So here's a particular tip. So if you're having trouble on the Mantis in particular of searching in the document with Control F, then it's recommended that you switch over to the Braille keyboard with F12. And the reason why this is important is the NLS Braille books are stored as contracted Braille. So in order for your Control F search to find what you're looking for cleanly, you need to be searching in basically the same code that the document itself is in.
Yeah, that's a good tip, because if you just type, like, let's say you're looking for the word, I'll pick an easy one, 4, and you type in FOR. So I picked that 4, not the number 4. But you're looking for FOR, and you type FOR, it's going to look for those characters, FOR. Whereas if you're reading a contracted Braille book, what you're really looking for is the full Braille cell. So you're looking for, in ASCII Braille, it is the equals sign. So you could type it in ASCII Braille, which most people don't know ASCII Braille. I know it a little bit, but I also have a cheat sheet right above my monitor that shows me all the ASCII Braille characters that I've been in this business a long time, and I still refer to my cheat sheet. So anyway, or you can, the easier method is you go ahead and, like Sarah said, switch to your Braille keyboard and then just type it manually using the SDF JKL. Braille and Speak days, yeah. That's the way.
So this takes us to our next poll question.
All righty. So our next poll question is a true false, and I will go ahead and launch the poll for you guys. And let's see. This question is true or false. The NLS update will only give you access to NLS Braille material. And you guys can go ahead and answer right now. It should launch right on your screens. We'll wait just a second more before ending this poll, giving you guys a little bit more time. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results with you guys. So it looks like 74% of you guys said true, that the NLS update will only give you access to the NLS Braille materials, and 26% of you guys said that that was false.
What's the correct answer, Sarah?
The correct answer is true. So this update only gives access to the Braille materials. So most of you are right on track.
Nice job.
Yeah, and I was glad that we were able to get the Braille materials in the update. This was one of our most requested features. Like, I present on the Mantis and Chameleon all the time, and someone would almost always ask, when are you going to add NLS? And so this was the update we were able to get, and I'm super happy to have it, especially as somebody that is a big advocate of Braille literacy. So I'm glad that we've got it on there. All right, well, let's jump into text-to-speech voices. All right, so this is an update for the Chameleon, and the main thing to know about it is voices have been added from all over the world. And I think it's a cool update. The Chameleon can now be more personalized than ever. If you remember when you got your Chameleon, it came with those 3 different colored cases. And I think that's a fun way to let users make their Chameleon unique and personalized to them. Well, now you can change up the voices and have it speak to you with the accent and using the pronunciation that you prefer. Personally, I remember my first encounter with a screen reader was as a little kid on a Mac. If you remember the Macs back in the day, you could type and then get it to talk, and we just thought that was the most fun. Like, just make it say dumb things and bad words. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. And so kids can have the same kind of fun with these different voices, not typing bad words, obviously. We don't want that. But you could have 2 voices available on the Chameleon at one time. This is a limitation from Acapella. So we're using the Acapella speech engine, which is a really great high quality speech engine. These voices sound great. Now, the thing about that is we had to pay per voice per unit. So that's why you can only have 2 voices on the unit at one time. You have the selection of any voice that you want for those 2 voices. I like what Jim put in the chat. The Chameleon can blend in even more. I wish I'd thought of that. That's really good. But yeah, so 2 voices, and they can be any 2 voices, and we'll get into how you switch between those voices and how all that works. So a little bit more about this 2 voices thing. There's the content voice, and that is for reading materials inside apps. And then you've got the system voice, which is for reading parts of the user interface. So content voice, like if you're in the library, if you're in the editor, it'll read what is on the screen. You've got lots of different ways to read what is on the screen. And I'm calling the Braille line the screen here. And then the system voice, that's going to be reading the user interface. So when you're in the menu, if you get a notification, if you access the context menu, if you press a hotkey, if something happens, that's going to get read by the system voice. You can set them as the same voice. So if you just have one voice that you love, you can set that voice as both your content and your system voice. However, what I would recommend is using 2 distinct voices for each. And that way you can easily distinguish content from system messages. And it just makes it clear, am I reading content or am I in the menu? And we've got a ton of voices for you to pick from. So hopefully you're able to find something that you like. So changing between the 2 voices. Content voice is tied to language. You're going to change your content voice by going to settings, language profile, configure profile, and then selecting the language you would like to edit. If you're on a Chameleon, you're going to be limited to English and Spanish. And part of why it's set up this way is because we do actually have a lot of voices. It's a lot of voices. And so by setting it up this way, it does make it easier to find the appropriate language. You can still set your other voice to whatever you want. So it's not like you're limited by language entirely. It just makes it a little easier to find the most appropriate content voice. And the language is important. If you pick another language, like you can pick Arabic, for example. Let's say you pick Arabic and then you start reading an English language document. It's going to pronounce the letters and the words as though they are Arabic, which means incorrectly for English. So the language really does matter. It's not just an accent. It's literally how it approaches language. One cool thing is, since content voice is tied to language, it's very easy to set up. You'll still be limited to just the 2 voices, but it's very easy to set up. Like, let's say you're a bilingual user and you speak English and you speak Spanish. You can have a language profile for English that uses English Braille codes, and that uses an English voice. And then you can have a Spanish profile that uses Spanish Braille codes or English Braille codes and a Spanish voice. So you could read, Spanish in UEB with everything pronounced in Spanish if you wanted. So I think it's set up in a really good way. And then you use Enter plus L to switch between those 2 profiles. Now, downloading voices. This is where it gets a little complicated. So you'll go to settings, then speech settings. Then you'll have an item, download language and voices. You get 2 options there. Change menu voice will allow you to change your menu voice, as we discussed, based on your system language. Then you have another option, change additional voice will allow you to change your second voice, and there you can choose from any available language. The reason it gets a little complicated is a restart is required whenever a single voice is changed. So this limitation is a requirement of acapella, like we discussed. So they made us make it a little inconvenient to change your voice. You can't just change it, whenever you want. You change it and then you got to restart. And so if you want to change your both of your available voices, you will have to restart the Chameleon twice. So that's the limitation. The Chameleon starts up really quickly, especially because of changes we made in a recent update. We recently set it up to where we cut the update time down considerably. It's like a 1/5 the time it used to be. So it doesn't take that long to restart and get right back in there, but just be aware that this is part of it. And just to give you an idea of some of the voices, so the English voices, we've got an Australian, United Kingdom voice, an India, so Indian English voice, a Scottish voice, and then for the additional voice options, which can be fun to play around with, or if you're learning that language, could be a useful way to help you learn that language. Arabic, we've got Catalan, Czech, Danish, German, and you also could pick all the English voices as well. Any questions about that while we move into the next piece? This is a bit complicated, and we did it the best we could, but we did have this requirement of we had to make it slightly inconvenient to change your voices. Cool. Well, if you think of anything, go ahead and throw it in the chat. So I talked a little bit about TTS generally, so text to speech generally. Speech is on by default when you turn on the Chameleon. If you go to the speech menu, you can turn it on and off. And we'll talk about a quicker way on the next slide. But I like how configurable speech is. And I've talked about this before, so forgive me if you've heard this before, but you can have it read the menu. So there's a speak menu option. There's a speak word under cursor option, speak display content after panning, and we also have an echo delete. And you can turn all these on or off. Then we've got keyboard echo, which is words, characters and words, or off. So while you're typing, it'll either read the word you typed, the character you typed, or both, or none at all. And then also the voice selection. My favorite thing is the speak word under cursor. So you can turn off all other types of speech, but have speak word under cursor on. And then if you're reading and you encounter a word that you're not familiar with, or a contraction you're not familiar with, and you want to know how to pronounce it, you can just press the cursor routing key above that word, and then you'll hear that word read aloud. So I think that's a really great way to use speech. Obviously, we want speech. That's why we have this update. But I think the worry is, especially with younger children, you don't want them relying on speech too much. If they rely on speech too much, they may not take to the reading Braille as well as one would want. And so I like this setup because the speech is there. It can support them in their learning, but it's not gonna do everything for them. And you know, also admit this too, speech is great if you're reading Braille by sight, or if you're not as comfortable with Braille and you're just helping someone that is, you know, it's not your display. Speech has been great for getting folks that aren't comfortable with Braille to be able to use the Chameleon, you know, and supplement their own Braille skills a little bit as well. So that's the other benefit for teachers and paraprofessionals that maybe aren't as familiar with the Braille code, but still want to support the person using the Chameleon. Some important speech hotkeys. So read all is space plus G. The most important one is stop reading, which is backspace plus enter. So backspace is .7. So it's .7 and .8 to stop reading. Increase reading speed is enter plus .5. Decrease reading speed is enter plus .2. And then you can toggle speech on and off by using space and the previous thumb key, which is, I'm sorry, but I get real confused about the names, and I'm pretty sure the previous thumb key is the one just to the left of the home button. But space plus the previous thumb key will toggle speech on or off. And that's a great one too. If you're in class, you'd been using speech, and suddenly your Chameleon starts talking and you just kind of panic and you need to turn your Chameleon speech off right now and you can't think about it, you can just quickly press space plus previous thumb key to turn it off. Yeah, and then as was mentioned in the chat by Deborah, thank you, is speech is good too if you are mastering UEV, even if you've read Braille all your life. Like, I'll admit, I use the speech all the time when I'm testing the Braille displays, just because it's easier. And, you know, obviously it's easier to listen than it is to read, and it's quicker too. I don't really have to wait. My brain doesn't have to process anything. I just have to press the button and then I hear it. So I use it all the time too, and I would say that I'm pretty fluent with Braille. We just don't want kids using it too much because they're learning to read, and you got to learn to read. All right. So last but not least is just some product information. So the cost. So the Mantis, they each have different prices whether you're using quota or non-quota funds. If you're a quota, and Sully, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're a quota customer, you get the quota price whether you use quota money or not. So it's a quota customer price and then a non-quota customer price. But Mantis, the quota price is $2,145. Thank you. So yeah, that is correct. And then the non-quota price is $2,682. And the Chameleon, the quota price is $1,392, and the non-quota price is $1,715. And those are like the least memorable prices I've ever. I can never remember them, so I always have to write them down. But are there any questions from folks? We got through that a bit faster than I thought we would, but there's no harm in letting folks leave a little early, but I definitely want to address any questions if folks have them. And it can be about anything. It doesn't, or, you know, anything related to the Braille displays. Anything related to the Braille displays, it doesn't have to be exactly what we presented on today. And I'll put my email in the chat again in case anybody thinks of anything later and would like to email. So is there in anything in the works as a cover for the Mantis or Chameleon? So the Chameleon has a nylon case. I actually have one here that covers the unit, and so it already has a cover. The Mantis does not. So the Mantis just came with that green TPU case. However, we are looking at a nylon case for the Mantis. We're just trying to figure out how to do that. And that is something we're looking at. So reading an NLS book, do you have the same level of navigation that you would with something in a Bookshare book? That's a great question. And unfortunately, navigation is tied to the markup in the file. So the NLS books, if it's BRF, famously, BRF doesn't have any markup. And so there's no way for us to know the heading levels. And there's no way to know the heading levels. And so we just don't have that enhanced navigation. With the Bookshare books, a lot of those Bookshare books you get are well marked up print files, and then we're translating them on the fly into Braille. And so you've got that markup there and you can navigate using that markup. So that's what's going on there. And then the next question is about the executive products case for the Mantis. It's actually out of, last I heard, it's out of stock, and it's probably going to be out of stock for the near future, but we'll update. If you don't follow APH News, make sure you follow APH News, because, we'll have announcements there about, okay, we do have 41. Somebody told me that one of our internal departments had cleaned out our case inventory, and I didn't check behind them. I just trusted them, and that's what I get for trusting them. So apparently we do have 41, but that is a low number of cases available, and just you'll wanna grab those now while you can if you're interested in getting a case, because we're not gonna be able to get an order for a while. But we'll keep you updated about cases. And then good question. Does the speech work in both editors? Such a good question. So speech works with print. It does not work with Braille. It's something we'd like to do. I don't know that we'll be able to do it, but speech we're not able to currently back translate the Braille consistently enough to give a good speech experience. So currently, speech works in the editor, works in the library, works in the menus, works with the calculator, works with most of the books you get through the online libraries, doesn't work with Braille. So great question. Does not work in the Braille editor.
Willow, there's a question I think we missed a little bit earlier in the flurry of questions. This is from Elizabeth. I have a student whose Chameleon says it's connected to school Wi-Fi, but won't connect to Bookshare or any other online services. Is there a tech support line for APH to get help?
Yes, there is. And it is, let me get it. So the number is, and I'll put it in the chat, 1-800-232-5463. So I'm going to put that in the chat. And then we also have an email, which I'm checking just to make sure it's still the same email, but it's cs@aph.org. And either one of those. So one of the things you can do, everybody's busy. And so what you can do is you can email at your convenience. Let's say you think of it at 8 o'clock at night. You can just email cs@aph.org and say, hey, here's who I am. Here's what my problem is. Here's when I'm available. Can you set up a time to talk to me? And we can set up a time to just speak with you when it's convenient for you. We do need generally like 48 hours notice to make an appointment. So it's not like you can email and get an appointment for that next day, but you can go ahead and email and get an appointment, or you can call in and try to get in the queue that way. But we're real good about getting back with people quickly. So please call in to check on that. And as far as your Bookshare account, there's a few things that could be happening. I don't know specifically without knowing more, but it could be, so it doesn't work with teacher accounts. So Bookshare, you can have a student account where you check out books just for yourself, teacher account where you basically assign books to your student. Doesn't work with teacher accounts, only works with student accounts. The other issue, and this is our fault, and we want to do better, but if your account is expired, we don't do a good job of telling you that your account is expired. It just doesn't work. And we don't give a good error message. And I'd like to get that updated. So we at least say, hey, your account's expired. It's not working. And then you know to follow up with Bookshare, hey, my account isn't expired or whatever it is. And then a comment here, it would be nice to have a plastic key cover that might work with that leather case, or to snap on to the bottom cover and maybe leave the Braille bar open. Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that. I definitely know that folks want options here. So we've got things we're looking at, but I can't, I don't want to make a promise and then not be able to follow through. So we're looking at our options, and we'll update APH News as soon as we have something to report. Any other questions?
So I eventually have a question that people might be thinking of, are afraid to ask. So if people have like questions or want to learn more information about the Mantis and Chameleon, but don't quite feel like they need to like call in for one-on-one support, where can they find more resources?
Well, the best place to find more resources is at aph.org. So you can go to either shop page. I'll go ahead and share the Mantis page just to give you an idea. And nobody judge me for the thousands of tabs that I have open. But this is the Mantis shop page. So aph.org/product/MantisQ40. And then you've got tons of helpful information about the Mantis, including the price, how many are in stock, different info about it. You can also access the release notes. You can join the mailing list. There's a comparison chart of APH refreshable Braille displays. We also have audio documentation that's free and was produced by Mystic Access. And you can check out, so we've got the Getting Started guide, we've got a user guide in English and Spanish, we've got the Braille user guide, we've got, we don't really need these anymore, but we keep them up there, but we've got JAWS drivers. If you have a very old version of JAWS pre-2020, a lifetime ago, you can get these JAWS drivers and it'll work with that. But if you have anything post-2020, you'll be able to just use your regular JAWS. If only there were an event that helped you know when something happened in 2020. You can also, there's files to set up a Mac external drive, and we've got our legacy update file that I talked about and the Braille, the normal update file. So there's a lot there. We also have a ton of stuff on our YouTube channel. So I recommend checking out our YouTube channel. We have a ton of things there for learning more about your Mantis, your Chameleon. There's past webinars. And then, as Sully put in the chat, we've got the Hive. We've got a course for both the Mantis and the Chameleon. Those have been really popular. And then our friends over at Humanware have the Buddy app for the Mantis Q40. And yes, Nancy, the NLS books will not be read aloud. So you can read them, but yeah, they're not read aloud. The speech doesn't work for them, and they don't have the audio files. Well, I really appreciate everybody that showed up today. I hope this has been useful for you, and I hope you'll join us at our next webinar and keep making Braille, keep teaching people how to read Braille, and thank you all so much.
Everyone, thanks for joining us today for this webinar. There are some links in the chat that have some resources for you guys if you want to follow up. And we hope that you guys have a good weekend. Bye.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.